Hi everyone, I'm Evening Ransom, and well, today I want to talk to you about a really bizarre characteristic, and it's kind of a dark topic. Well, it's actually a very, very dark topic, but a very real topic that is, confronting me in my life, and something I just want to talk about. And it actually, a lot of these things, I can know about them intellectually, but it really takes me, because my mind, I have a mind that just so does not think like a narcissist's mind. Even though, you wonder how that can happen. When I was raised by narcissists, I was married to a sociopath, it makes you wonder how it can be that I don't just by second nature know how they think. But I really don't. I still have a lot of aha moments. So I've recently had an aha moment. It took me almost a year because my son died almost a year ago. He died last July 11th. Let me put this. The things that I had witnessed my ex-husband doing and the family doing over the course of my children's lives, it was counter to love, for sure. I knew that it wasn't misguided. I knew that, especially my ex's thing, it was really that what he was doing is he was just trying to take my children from me in the custody battles. He was just trying to cost me my children. I realized that this was my son dying was a victory. My son dying was a victory for not only my ex-husband, but my family, because they had all tried to separate me from my kids. They'd all tried to, and they'd all done things that were that were not what you would do to do what was best for a child. You wouldn't have done what they were doing, and anybody would have known that. Anybody would have known that. And what it is I've been kind of watching what the behavior has been in the last year, and it all just seems so much more bizarre. But watching the behavior in the last year, and realizing that just how envious of me my mother was. See, I've been trying to piece together why a mother would do the things that my mother has done, what the narcissist wants to do to you, what the narcissist, and so when I say the narcissist, in this case, I can talk about across the board because I have so many different narcissists in my life. Now, imagine how this went. Your one and only daughter has a heart attack out of the blue at 33 years old, has a heart attack. Her husband leaves her and somehow tells you something, gets you on board, that you back him up in leaving her. He leaves her on your 10th anniversary while she's in the hospital with your support. Okay, then and even by the time that's happened, you've been on the phone with her friends. You've been sabotaging, you've been talking about her to people. Now this is you have to understand, this happened to me after a lifetime of, we don't air the family's dirty linen, respect the family's, we keep family business private, all this kind of stuff. And, believing that we were a very, very private family. And now my mother is going out of the way to, my mother and my brother going out of their way to slander me among my friends. And not only my friends, they'll slander me in counseling groups, they'll slander me with lawyers' offices, just anybody that will listen. They're slandering me with. Now, so I've already almost died, okay? I'm devastated to be losing my marriage. This is heartbreaking to me. So I've already almost lost my health. My children are my life. My children are the thing that I'm hanging on to. Now, I also, this is the other thing, is I realized that I had this very narrow box that I was allowed to, that it was okay for me to exist in. I meant it as a compliment to my mother, that I was sort of emulating her life, you know, that I basically was doing things much the way that she did them, you know, moved back to my hometown, got married, had a couple of children, you know, was doing things very much like she did them. But she didn't see it as a compliment. She saw it as competition. I now realize. These are just kind of some of the ahas were coming to me. You know, I don't know why it took me so long to see it, but because, you know, I was just really kind of trying to think about, you know, what could possibly have been in it for my mother, you know? Because, you know, here I am with, you know, adult kids, and I've just lost an adult child, and I think, why would you ever give up your child? You know, like right now, she could have, all this time, she could have had me and my sons in her life, and it would have been, I would think, so much better. What I see is that it was really, really hostile in a way that beyond what I can even imagine, and that really they were just on a mission to take from me everything that I cared about and everything that I loved, and were willing to just pretend nothing ever happened, really having very little understanding about what they had done. I mean, they had done some really bad things, but not even knowing how bad the bad things that they'd done had opened up the floodgates for my husband to do to me. So, you know, they'd done some really bad things, but that was only the tip of the iceberg of what they had opened up to have happen, and also the tip of the iceberg on just what it costs a person to have no protection in the world. And it doesn't matter, you know, society is designed so that it's not just little children that need protection. We all need people. We all need people to have our backs. And so it doesn't matter how old you are. If you know, you need somebody to have your back. And so, and I can honestly say that it made a major difference in my life that my parents just jumped on board with my ex-husband. Major. It was, and that's why he went for them first. But if they had just, all they would have had to do was just disapprove. Just subtly disapprove. Let him know that he wasn't going to have their support if he came out and tried to hurt me or anything. If they had just done that, it would have changed everything. It would have been a whole different life for me, a whole different world. And instead, what they did was they let him know that anything he wanted to do was fine with them. They got their hands dirty. They made it look publicly like he basically got them the stamp of approval publicly, so that, you know, no one else was going to raise an eyebrow at them because they were thinking, well, of her own parents, blah, blah, blah. You know, so he got, you know, it was very, very damaging, just in appearances only, but also because, you know, he was so entitled, and he had there was no sense of right or wrong, and what he would stop himself. He wasn't going to stop himself. Not even the law would stop him. You know, nothing was going to stop him. He would just go until he was going to take every single thing. And the only thing that he did not succeed in doing and succeed in taking from me, literally the only person, the only thing that he did not succeed in destroying in my life was the most important thing in the world to me, and that was my family with my 2 boys. When you have a situation like this, it really is like the 3 of us were in a platoon. You know, we were more than just a mother and sons, we really had a connection that was like we were in some sort of a war zone, you know, and really the way that them constantly trying to drive us apart and take us apart was bonded us together. And so really this was the ultimate. And believe me, this was definitely an option all along for my ex, because I am removed. You know, they're getting far more attention and sympathy and all that than I ever would. And you know, no one's going to know that that none of them are heartbroken at all. That their dad, you know, they were perfectly willing. They've been jeopardizing them and putting them at risk. The entire family, particularly their father, putting them at risk for basically daring them to do this kind of thing for years. There's now one less person who know. The only people who knew the truth were my kids and me, right? So now there's one fewer person who knows the truth, which they're happy about. And you know, there's so many things for my ex and all them to be happy about. But the biggest one, of course, is that the pathological envy is satisfied, because they were all pathologically envious of my relationship with my kids, and that they could never tear us apart. They see it as a victory that my son has died, and that's twisted. Of course, they would never admit that, but I know it's true, because their actions were leading right there. That's exactly where nothing that they did would have proved anything other than that. And the way that they have been since is not the way that you would be if you had any kind of understanding about love and compassion and loss of a child and all of that. And plus, not to mention the fact that my parents have voluntarily not had a relationship with me in 16 years. And so, you know, they're doing something I would never in a million years ever dream of doing. So they can't imagine the loss, because they're choosing it, you know, and I would never choose it, you know. So they can't appreciate my grief, because that's not the experience they have as parents. That's what they experience. They haven't ever experienced that kind of love. It feels like you're defeated, and it, you know, how could you not feel defeated even for a minute when something like this was to happen? Is to keep going. That's how dark it is. That it is that dark. That my own mother, my father, my children's father were so lacking in love, so envious, that this is a victory for them, that my son has died. And that's just how dark it is. And so there isn't any love or compassion there. They have no idea what it means to me to have to be going through this. They have no idea. And their experience of, you know, having lost him, or my parents' experience of having lost me, is nothing like it. It's not even close to resembling what it's like for me and for Liam. So, but the answer is to create and to keep going forward, and be true to myself. You know, that's the thing too, is when it comes to how do you beat narcissists and stuff like that, you don't do it in their world. You don't do it on their terms. You do it by being your true self, by being the truest to yourself as you can be. You don't want to get in the mud pit with them, because they're just going to beat you in the mud pit. They know that world. You don't know that world, and you'll get exhausted and confused, and they will totally beat you at that game. But the where you can always win is by continuing to do things your way, the way that you know is right and that you can feel really good about. So what is it that they're feeling about it? And I was kind of thinking about it, and then a few different things happened, and then it came to me. It's like, oh, that's what they're thinking about. They're thinking, yeah, right on. She lost him after all. That shows her, screw her. So it's that kind of pettiness, that kind of hostility, that's the kind of hostility that I've been up against, if you can imagine. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.